Mobile Fighter G Gundam is unlike any Gundam series before it and since. It casts aside the space opera epic of the Universal Century setting of the original series in favor of an action-adventure that turns Gundam into something between a super robot series and a kung fu flick. It's a story with robot martial arts, mystical special techniques, a mummy, nanomachines, camaraderie, betrayal, heartbreak, romance, a horse piloting a Gundam, and so much screaming. So much screaming. How the hell did we get here? Is any of this any good? What the hell is going on? Well, let me explain. 15 years is a long time when it comes to the life of a franchise. In 1994, people who hadn't even been born yet when Gundam first aired were now its target audience. Gundam's whole business model is about merchandise. The shows exist to sell gunpla and toys to kids and teens. But Sunrise realized early on that adults also buy toys and merchandise, and they have a lot more money to do so. So Gundam is heavily reliant on nostalgia. The moneyed fans of the older series are more likely to buy stuff that reminds them of their own favorites after all. But capitalization on nostalgia isn't the best way to attract newer, younger fans. 15 years in, the original Gundam was dated, and most of the ventures back into the times of the original series were taking the form of direct-to-video prestige projects, which tended to be pricier affairs only for older fans. Would a 13-year-old Gundam neonate even know what a Zaku is, let alone want to buy one? So Sunrise started setting Gundam media ever later in the Universal Century timeline, to give them space from the original setting while also having some connections back to try to bring in the older fans. Unfortunately for them, 1993's Victory Gundam, the last really full-length television series set in the Universal Century, was something of a flop. Corporate micromanagement and severe budgetary issues hampered its production early on, and it failed to take off. So the only choice Sunrise had was to take a break from the Universal Century and see if the Gundam name could capture lightning in a bottle a second time. Now, imagine you're the person in charge of creating a new Gundam project, a new Gundam universe. What would you do? Would you stay close to the feel, themes, and setting of the original series? Or would you do what director and writer Yasuhiro Imagawa did and completely challenge what Gundam could be? The future century is the setting of the 1994 television series Mobile Fighter G Gundam. In the future century, pastiche equivalents of the various nation-states of Earth circa 1990 have moved into orbiting space colonies. Rather than waging war against each other, every 4 years these nations instead hold a mecha-based martial arts competition on the Earth. The winner of this competition, the Gundam fight, earns the right to rule all of space until the next tournament. G Gundam is set in year 60 of the future century, at the cusp of the 13th Gundam fight. Domon Kashu, a skilled young martial artist and representative of Japan, travels to Earth with his childhood friend and mechanic Rain Mikamura. But his participation in the Gundam fight has an ulterior motive: to track down a mysterious man in a torn photograph. Over the course of his journey, Domon fights, befriends, and defeats other nations' fighters, gets mixed up in their troubles and tribulations, struggles with his relationship with Rain and his own past, and ultimately confronts a dark force that threatens to jeopardize not only the Gundam fight, but humanity itself. So pretty different from your usual Gundam fare. But it's not a total break. While the themes of war and pacifism have been largely resolved by the setting itself, G Gundam instead focuses heavily on Gundam's environmental message, as well as the general struggle for humans to connect with one another. Just here it's mostly people connecting via their fists. G Gundam is highly divisive. You either love it or you hate it. Personally, I love it. It's just such a completely different thing than all the other Gundams before and since. And it is actually just one of the best shonen action and super robot series of all time. It's got big fights, big heart, and amazing characters. It's just such an evocatively emotional and passionate series. As an introduction to Gundam in particular, it's a bit of an odd place to start. given how much it differs from the milieu. But as an introduction to mecha as a whole, it's pretty damn good, especially if you're the kind of person who finds the over-the-top nature appealing. If, let's say for example, the fact that the fighter for Neo America, named Chibbity Crockett, pilots a Gundam that surfs, has a revolver, a football helmet, and boxing gloves, all of this being played straight while the character has a great arc. If that's something you find good, you will probably enjoy what the series is going for. G Gundam is silly, it's over the top, but it keeps a completely straight face the whole time. That's what makes it work. It's absurd, but serious. In a way, G Gundam is something of a good Trojan horse Gundam introduction. It has tremendous standalone appeal outside of the Gundam connection, and so it makes for a good way to backdoor someone into the franchise, and mecha as a whole. Plus, both the dub and sub are great, even with the dub's sort of ridiculous localization changes for broadcast. G Gundam was a big deal, but neither it or any of the preceding series were the first to make their way onto Western television. So next time, Gundam makes inroads into America on the back of a bunch of terrorist teens with attitude. What's your thoughts on G Gundam? Love it? Hate it? Share it in the comments.